what's truly sad in this whole thing, you retired. You were just 27 days short of getting your pension.
If I ever get a chance to get you those 27 days, I'm going to get them for you.
Whitey, I loved playing for you.
Well, listen, the other thing is,
I'm sorry.
If I were you,
I
I think the Texas Rangers owe you those 27 days.
There's a couple of fellows out there that are trying to, or have written a movie and trying to sell it about me, Richard and Michael Julian, and the title of it's called Squeeze Play, which I think in some instances describes exactly what I got caught in with Billy.
Coming up and coming at you on the one and only Best Damn Sports Show, period. You'll hear the first-hand amazing story of the rise and fall of high school phenom David Clyde.
Welcome back to the Best Damn Sports Show, period. You know, before there was LeBron James or Kobe Bryant or Kevin Garnett, there was our next guest, a flame-throwing lefty who was in high school one day and on the mound pitching for the Texas Rangers the next. He was the first overall pick of the '73 draft. Now, instead of learning how to pitch and growing up a little in the minors, he went straight to the big leagues. 20 days after leading his high school team to the state finals, he was pitching for the Rangers. What followed were hard times, heavy partying, and now an appearance on the Best Damn Sports Show, period. Please welcome David Clyde!
Rod, how you doing? John, good to see you.
Hey, buddy, welcome.
David, how are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we get started, you got a boy that's going to school in Iowa somewhere?
Just a little bit. We got to give a little shout out for Iowa Central.
Iowa Central in Fort Dodge, Iowa. The Tritons?
They're the number 4 ranked Division II junior college team in the country, although they haven't played a game yet. So we'll see how the rest of it goes.
All right.
All right, you know, obviously, we've been talking a lot on this show, David, about LeBron James and what he might face. You were 18 years old and in the big leagues. It's one thing to be in pro baseball in the minor leagues and learning your craft. You were in the big leagues. When did you realize that, boy, this is a little too much?
Well, it's not that it's too much physically for people that are brought along that quickly. It's the mental aspect of it. I made that big jump from high school to the big leagues, and at the same time felt that I had to be that much better. Instead of just being myself and letting my natural abilities take over, if I threw 95 in high school, and I played a long time ago before they had radar guns, you know, they clocked us with a sundial and everything. But, I felt I had to throw 100 miles an hour, and if I had a real good curveball, I thought that it had to be that much better. And I think anybody who's played the game knows that the harder you try, sometimes the worse things become. And it just kind of snowballed. The harder I tried, the worse things became.
But it was also socially to go from being a kid into the environment with the professional athletes to try to keep up with them. That seems like that would be the hardest thing of all.
Oh, absolutely. There's nobody, at least then, that was anywhere near my age. Jeff Burroughs, who was probably the youngest player on the team at that time, was 22 or 23 years old. And at that time, you know, who wants to be hanging out with some 18-year-old punk?
Were you a punk?
Not really. I was probably a little full of myself, but any athlete who's been successful is kind of full of themselves. I wasn't arrogant or anything, but I was pretty cocky. I'd been so successful for so long and hadn't really tasted defeat in so long that I didn't ever expect to fail.
You know, David, talk about, you know, it sounds like you put all the pressure on yourself, but talk about the instruction you got. We were talking about it before we came on the air. The instruction that you maybe didn't get when you were with the Rangers that you needed, especially at 18 years old, to teach you how to pitch.
Well, there's absolutely no instruction, at least from my experience at the big league level. And in 1974, when I was playing for Billy Martin, I won my first 3 ball games of the year, and then sat for a month and wasn't even allowed to practice, and then was thrown back out to the Wolves. And of course I failed at that point. And the extent of my instruction was, I'll kiss your ass if you throw it over home plate and they hit it. And that was it.
So did he have something against you? It's odd you'd win your first 3 games and you wouldn't touch a ball for a month.
I really hate to, you know, I really hate to talk about people who can't defend themselves, as we all know Billy's dead and gone. But people in baseball know that there were certain things that Billy did not like. Billy disliked pitchers. Billy disliked young ball players. And third, and might have been the big thing, Billy wanted to be the star of the show no matter where he was at. And I didn't ask to be the star of the show, but because of the logistics of things, being somewhat of a homegrown product in Texas, although I'm not a native Texan, I went to high school in Texas, I was the star of the show. That was not my choice. That was everybody else's choice. And therefore, Billy set out to prove that I couldn't pitch in the big leagues, and I paid the price for it.
David, this is for you and Ron. Now, in basketball, guys have come in at that age, 17, 18. Jermaine O'Neal, who was on our show, was the youngest ever to come in, younger than Kobe even. But we always put like mentors with him in the NBA to make sure that they didn't fall into the pit hole. Is there any 18 or 17-year-old ready for the majors?
Well, there's a lot of things that go into it. And the big
Give me an
thing,
example.
well, it's very nice to be remembered. It's been 30 years since my debut, and I'm still remembered for it. And my career went from a shooting star and hopefully a dream to somewhat of a nightmare. I don't have any regrets outside of the fact that I wasn't as successful as I'd wanted to be, but there was no infrastructure in place. And I think the one contributing factor, and I think it's one reason that I'm still remembered to this day, is that they're not going to let happen to someone what happened to me. When they invest, especially today with the kind of money they're investing in kids, several $1 million, they don't want to afford, they can't afford to have that go wrong. And so, for really lack of a better word, you almost going to kind of be like a mama's boy. I mean, you've got to have somebody like a mentor, somebody very strong in character and is looking out for you. And there's a couple of fellas that I've been talking with lately, and they're trying to even make a movie about my first year. And we've been talking with the producer of The Rookie, Mark Ciarte, and my
Who's
movie.
going to play you?
According to my wife, Tom Cruise.
Good luck, David.
But you know, it would be kind of a cautionary type deal, the pitfalls to avoid. And I think even in basketball, because I think Moses Malone may have been the first high school kid, and that was about my time, maybe even a little bit before that. But there was really nothing in place to protect these youngsters. And even to this day, I don't know if guys I played with that were almost old enough to be my father, if they were out to take advantage of me, which in sports happens. I mean, you want to make the young guys, for whatever reason, earn their stripes and everything, or were they out to take, you know, making me feel part of the ball club?
David, I'm sorry, in the 30 seconds we have left, if you could pull LeBron James aside for 5 minutes, what would you tell him?
Remain focused on what you did to get here. And don't let all the pomp and circumstance sidetrack you, because it's very easy to get distracted at that level, and a lot of people want a piece of you. And you've got to make it a change anything. You continue to make the time for your conditioning and practices and everything. And you've got to learn, and I know it's part of the maturing and growing up process, but you've got to learn to sort out what's good point that you don't should advice and what's not. You need to, you know, listen to everybody, but pull out what's good for LeBron and cast the other stuff aside.
Words of wisdom from a man who has lived it. David Clyde, he's all grown up now. We appreciate the time and the insight, David. Thank you very much.